Kia ora tātou katoa and welcome to the Foundation North Whare. It's wonderful to have you all here. In fact, I just wrote a couple of notes down. I actually wanted to rewrite my presentation while everyone was speaking, but be disruptive, break the law. I mean, that's really, really interesting. Don't ask permission. Don't ask permission, but apologise, and then get told don't even bother apologising. This is pretty interesting stuff. This piece of wisdom I was given when I first started working for Roy Mackenzie in the 80s, and it was given to me by the then CEO of the Maya Foundation. The role of philanthropy is to provide the venture capital of social change. But it's just occurred to me the last few minutes that I might need another motto. I've been talking about this for 12 years, but it feels like everything's got a bit more vibrant and a bit more disruptive. Maybe the role of philanthropy is to provide the venture capital of social disruption. I mean, that's what I'm starting to hear. But what I want to do is talk about the journey that we've been on here at Foundation North, which has kind of led to where we are today, with the Centre for Social Impact moving into its third year, and Foundation North coming up to its nearly 40th year. So what have we at Foundation North learnt about philanthropic practice over the last decade? And I think the huge learning for us as we moved through our Māori and Pacific Education Initiative was that we as a trust were seeking to find innovative solutions that would address Māori and Pacific educational underachievement in Auckland and Northland. And we really did start this project, and I'm sure almost everyone in this room has heard me talk about it at length. But we really did start the project with an open mind. We really didn't know what we were going to do. We knew what we wanted to achieve, so we had what's come to be called a theory of change. We believed very firmly that the answers to Māori and Pacific educational underachieving lay in the communities that those children came from. And what we set about doing with the Māori and Pacific Education Initiative, led by Moy Beecroft, who's sitting here in the front, was to, if you like, harness the power of those communities. What we were seeking was solutions to what we call deeply entrenched social issues. So as you probably all know, we ring-fenced $20 million for this to be spent over 5 years. And we spent nearly 2 years consulting with what we called Māori and Pacific reference groups. And so we learned an enormous amount as a group of staff and trustees about our communities through that reference group process. And we made a very interesting decision, because we're talking about 2006, which is that we would fully fund providers for up to 5 years. And no other grant-making body in the country had said, we're just going to give you the money to do what you need to do for 5 years. What we then said to them is, we're going to walk alongside you. I remember standing in this room with Moy and saying, Moy, we can't leave for 10 years because we've just committed to this group of people that we will walk alongside you for 10 years. And that was a really big commitment from both the foundation, but also from us personally. So what are we learning as we go along? I think what we're learning as a foundation, and this has really been reinforced by the earlier speakers this morning, is that deeply entrenched social problems will take long-term evidence-based investment to effect change. That you have to be prepared to work with uncertainty, and I think that's the real challenge to the government, Dorothy, is working in this place of uncertainty. I think community's known for a long time about working with uncertainty, but it's not my experience that government is yet comfortable working in uncertainty, particularly public servants. It's definitely all about relationships, that high trust takes time to build, but then it becomes invaluable when things go wrong. Strong leadership's utterly crucial, and you've seen that in the people that have been speaking to you this morning. And we as a foundation made a very early commitment to implementing and to funding monitoring and evaluation, and that's utterly critical, because in the end we have to talk about the results. What we identified was the importance of community-led decisions, early identification of need for capacity building, specialist staff in the foundation, early engagement with government. And I mean, it's very encouraging, Dorothy, to hear what you're talking about, because I don't know that we've found that space yet where philanthropy and government can engage in what we've learnt. So what we learnt about the programs is, in the end, it's about trusted relationships that have to develop over time between funders and communities and within communities. We learnt that our communities can create the change they want to see. We don't have the answers sitting in this room around this table, but what we've learned is that communities know what the changes they want for their young people. When we went out to the call for applications for the Māori and Pacific Education Initiative, we got 350 expressions of interest, and all of them were from the heart. Some of them handwritten on A4 pieces of paper from the heart about what people wanted for their communities. Then for funders, it's about walking alongside each other and thinking together. So we as funders need to be humble. The answers don't all sit with us. And it's expect change and be prepared to be courageous. So we used to talk about it as being organic, but I've learned a new word this week, and it's be scrappy. So Moy would sometimes come to my office and say, what are we going to do now? And I'd say, I don't know, it's organic. And then we'd sit down and we'd talk about what it's going to be. We're doing some work with the Centre for Social Impact around an environment project, and what we're talking about is being scrappy, which is even more interesting, I think. And absolutely making sure that we ensure that reflective and evaluative thinking and practice is built in right from the start. We have to know what it is that what is it that we want to turn around? What is success going to look like? How are we going to know when we've got there? So what's working for us is new ways of working. So this has led to our Catalysts for Change program, and you've seen two stellar examples of just two of the projects that we've been supporting here. So we're looking to support organisations that can show measurable impacts on entrenched social issues. We're also looking for an evidence base to underpin our own policy development. It leads to us funding fewer groups, but with long-term multi-year grant commitments, building in capacity development and evaluation. One of the things we've learned is this way of working is not for everyone, and you have to be prepared to have an honest conversation with a group of grantees about whether you do want the specialist poking at your belly for the next 9 months. Because if you don't, this is not the right way of working for you, but also high trust is essential on both sides. So what this has led to, as you're aware in Foundation North, is the establishment of CSI. And there were a number of drivers for us in the establishment of the centre, but one of them was to keep the IP in the whānau, in the house, in the building, in the team, so that we as a foundation can learn from what CSI is learning from our grantees. We also want to provide wraparound services to our grantees, and it augments the grants package. Anthony, you talked about it being more than the money, basically, in your grants. And grants increasingly have to be more than the money. But we want to incorporate the learnings, and we have to, as a funding body, be prepared to be learning continuously. We want to share what we've learned from others, and we want to draw on a pool of expertise that's wider than our staff. So what this has led us to, interestingly, was an examination of this extraordinary report on the state of the Gulf in 2014. And on Monday, we launched a fund called GIFT. And I can talk to anybody who's interested about this later, but it's our next MPEI, if you like. It's the foundation moving to work with a large group of stakeholders around raising the quality of both the land and the sea in the Hauraki Gulf. And I put this up to illustrate the way that the foundation is continuing to move and the way we have adapted what we learned from MPI, what we've learned from Catalysts for Change as we move into this new fund that we launched on Monday. And it will be scrappy and it will be organic. And hopefully I won't be standing here. I will come into my Zimmer frame in 10 years' time and tell you how successful it also has been. Alison asked me to think about what the wildcards are, so I was thinking about that we're living in a really volatile world, rapidly emerging social issues, and I think the housing issue was a fascinating one, and watching the whole country catalyse around Te Puia Marae was absolutely fascinating. That actually it was a community organisation that stood up and said, enough is enough. And the whole way that it unfolded was quite extraordinary, I think. Climate change is certainly something that we're very aware as a foundation. Increasingly changes in government policies and responses, changes in the New Zealand economy. And what I've called in my first notes here was Brexit and Trump. I changed to a period of rapid change in the Uberisation of the world as we know it. It feels to me like we are living in a world where there's enormous change happening. Looking forward, I think we're going to see more and more change in philanthropic practice. I think we're seeing changes in government responses and practice, recognising community responses, and I think we're also going to see really significant changes in the not-for-profit sector as we know it. So I think we're in a very, very interesting time. But I do just want to say that I think I really want to applaud the work of CSI. I think it's been extraordinary. It's also scrappy and a bit organic, and will look different again in a couple of years' time, and I think that's the way that we will all be working in the future. So thanks.